So let's talk about Ukraine, nuclear weapons, and what it is all about. You should understand that after what happened with Ukraine, everyone who previously had doubts has now made the firm decision to obtain their own nuclear weapons. No one will publicly announce this, but efforts will be made, and they are likely already happening. There are no longer any arguments against various countries acquiring their own nuclear weapons. The only remaining factors are the ability to implement such a plan and the pace of this process. There are no arguments because there is no alternative. There is no way to ensure one's security other than by creating excessive risks for those who are not ready to accept them. This simple idea has been conveyed to our partners since February 2022, and before February, we emphasized that such situations will arise if no one influenced Russia, and the situation did indeed arise. Then, in the winter of 2024, Russian politologist, who can be called official herald of the uh, apocalypse, Sergei Karaganov, he put forward the idea that Russia should distribute nuclear weapons to loyal countries. Such controlled proliferation of nuclear weapons, it is a candy that the Kremlin has and the West doesn't have. And one of the facets of BRICS, it is a club of non-Western nuclear powers and contenders. Only one thing can stop such proliferation, such spread: a demonstrative punishment of the nuclear terrorist Putin and his accomplices, as well as the establishment of international control over Russia's nuclear arsenal. Washington and the world capitals are well aware of this. There is no other way. Currently, various talking heads in the West may start criticizing Ukraine for raising the option NATO or nuclear weapons. However, they have no arguments as to why Ukraine shouldn't present this issue. If the victim of aggression is scolded, and even worse, if it is threatened with cutting off aid, it will not help. On the contrary, it will only encourage other nuclear aspirants. NATO is off limit, nuclear weapons are off limits, and the only options left is to heroically die. And this is a very, very unattractive model. I don't see anything wrong with nuclear weapons being presented as a possible, and I emphasize not mandatory, it is possible political goal for Ukraine. If there is national consensus and consistent efforts, even if not under this president, but the next or the one after that, Ukraine will surely be able to accomplish this task. Now this will be the part of the political discussion outside of our country. And you know what's most dramatic for our partners? If Ukraine loses and some Russian control entity emerge, it will quickly become nominally nuclear with Moscow's help. In other words, it is no longer just about our country. The nuclear genie has been let out of the bottle, and to control it, adequate actions are needed. But the very thought of having to solve such truly global issues, it causes nervous shivers in those who are supposed to do this. This is visible. Now it's their problem, not Ukraine's. We can either help or worsen their situations. Let them propose something, because the whole world is watching. And there are people already saying that nuclear weapons for Ukraine are impossible due to numerous political obstacles, that it is insanely difficult to organize the manufacture of such weapons, it takes a long time, it is insanely expensive, and so on. But is anyone in their right mind seriously saying that it is simple and cheap? Of course it is difficult and expensive. And plus, everyone will try to interfere. Yeah. They will block our borders, they will assassinate our scientists and engineers, and they create other obstacles. But Uh, it's all because the stakes are incredibly high, sovereignty of Ukraine. But is joining NATO simpler, quicker, and less costly process? Definitely not. These are two comparable efforts in terms of the investment required. These are these both are demanding the exertions of all resources, consensus of our people, and so on. And let me remind you that the consensus for NATO was forced. It emerged as a result of a full-scale war. A quarter of the country went up in flames for this consensus to form. NATO is the priority that has been clearly stated. Nuclear weapons are bad, expensive choice, and it is better not to go down that path. It's like trading all the butter and half the bread for guns for the next generation. The nuance here is that at this stage, NATO is not in our hands. Ukraine has already done everything it could. What remains is a political decision, but it is not up to us. But with nuclear weapons, we have options. Do you know why our partners take this option seriously and don't laugh it off? Because they are convinced that Ukraine can accomplish the task of acquiring nuclear weapons if it is set as a national priority and there is a long-term political will. In the past 2.5 years, they have already grown tired of counting the impossible missions that Ukraine has successfully completed. Right now, our Ministry of Foreign Affairs and our government as a whole, they must fiercely deny any desire to obtain nuclear weapons. And they have already started doing so, which is the right move. The logic has been laid out. That's enough. Now it lives its own life and everyone believes it because it's true. The sober assessment of the situation now sounds like this. If we don't bring these outliers into NATO and leave them hanging in a gray zone, they will, out of desperation, build a nuclear bomb. How they will use it? It is it is terrifying even to imagine. But if we hand them over to Russia, they together with Russia will happily seek revenge on us, and trust in Russia to keep them in check is moronic. And a dozen other such outliers are watching this and drawing conclusions. And therefore, inviting Ukraine to NATO, and I emphasize inviting, not accepting, inviting, even inviting Ukraine to NATO at this stage is a minuscule price to pay and the most pragmatic solution. It costs practically nothing. The lack of such an invitation must be compensated with such massive bonuses that they will impress not Ukraine. They should impress all the other outliers who are watching this. That's what this is all about. Thank you for watching. Slava Ukraini!